All right, I had some amazing conversations with you all, some of the contributions you've had at the booth. So hopefully, as Jane mentioned, you've got some great stories to tell and that you have some great stories that you've been hearing as well. And that's the important piece, I think, when we think about communities of practice and what we're doing to go further with those. And I didn't want to bore you to death with a bunch of PowerPoints because I know you've seen PowerPoints all week long, right? And you're like, slides, it's enough already. So I know I get that feeling third day of the conference. So I will quickly go through a couple of things, and then I wanted to show you a demo of some of the technology and how we use it internally at Microsoft, and hope that that would be helpful to inform like maybe some of the things that you're doing and working on. And this is sort of really ranging around communities of practice because it really is that area that's been around in knowledge management for so many years now. When I first started at Shell working on the knowledge management framework that we had there, the big area was around communities of practice, and what we've seen is evolution of technology, the way that people interact with each other and the communities that we're engaging with. But it's also a great way to think about it as a method of employee engagement more generally at your organizations. And so when you look at communities of practice, you can see we've got some great stats around global employee engagement, which is really about people that feel like they're connected to your company, that they understand a bit more about a company's strategy and how they fit in as part of that. And having engaged employees is actually essential to business success. It actually results in better profit margins for your organization, as well as just feeling more of that talent development and that pipeline of people that you have internally. So when we think about communities of practice, this is not just about extracting and understanding the tacit knowledge that you have inside of your company. It's about how am I engaging my employees? How are we using the talents that they have, and how are they sharing with each other, and actually making us one of the best performing companies that you want overall. So when we think about the first segment around this is really getting leadership engagement. We know that it's crucial, whether it's your communities that you're working on right now, or whether it's something you're trying to adopt inside of the company and your new range of technologies and what are some of the things that you want to do. And so getting leaders involved in how you create that community, how do you create that culture? Maybe it's the digital transformation that you're going through. And so when we look at leadership engagement, we see that, great workplaces here, great quote from Gallup, have leaders that really make engagement a priority and communicate open and consistently. And so we think about how you can put together some of those elements with leadership engagement. We look at the areas that we do internally at Microsoft. For example, our CEO every month has a kind of a monthly Q&A that get broadcast to the entire company. Obviously, with 130,000 plus employees at Microsoft, over 90 countries that they're in, this is something that we want to make sure that everybody feels like they can participate across the company. And so we use a leadership connection community inside of Yammer to actually do that. So we take that live event, we actually broadcast it through Yammer, so people can ask questions and have conversations during that community. And the idea is that we want to go from those episodic communications to actually having people ask questions all the time, and to be able to do that in an open forum. And the reason for that is giving your employees a voice. And once they get into the habit of actually posting and communicating in those communities, then it's a great cultural transformation in terms of what you can expect for other communities that you want them to be involved in. So if we can have leaders actually help to model some of that transformation, then it's very easy to bring the next set of people on board and the next set of tasks and the things that you want them to communicate. So we use a vision and strategy site we use around SharePoint, and we actually put in those discussions from communities, and then we put together some of the documents as well. And then we manage and plan those events inside of Microsoft Teams. So I just want to sort of outline, this is sort of the set of tech that we use, and this is literally what we use inside of Microsoft. I'm going to show you that in just a second. And then when we're looking at what we're trying to drive through this leadership engagement strategy, it's really around these four areas. And sort of having that communication ability, having the ability to authentically connect with employees. And this doesn't mean if you have to be an organizational leader. Oftentimes inside of our own companies, and I'm sure many of you out there, you're leaders in terms of a community. Maybe it's a community that you're working with right now. You're a leader because you're trying to adopt new change or something else. And so the ability to have that engagement and have that authentic conversation with you is really important. And then looking in terms of transparency and the clarity, the things that you're trying to push out as objectives, and then having communication that's open for that, and having that sustained engagement as part of it. So we think that's a really important way of using a community and actually having the conversations to authentically empower that. And then, what are the results we're trying to drive out of all this? Obviously, we're not just having conversations for the hell of it. We actually want to think about how we're driving those business results as part of it too. So how we're aligning people towards that goal, and then how we're communicating those shared values. Again, this is something you can scale for a CEO-wide type of approach, but you can also scale it down to what you need in terms of internally for your own small communities or smaller communities that you might have. So I wanted to show you a quick demo because it's more fun than PowerPoints, as we established earlier. So it's just much more easier to do that. So I'm going to take you into Yammer, assuming the computer allows me to actually present, because I am presenting, but it's not letting me see it. Why are you not letting me see it? Let's try again. It says duplicate. Let's try that. Technology, always fun. There we go. Duplicate. Do it, do it, do it. Yeah. Okay. So, it works better if you do that, right? So it's like pushes the electrons faster. It's all good. So I wanted to show you, this is an example community that we would have inside of Yammer. And as I said, I can't show you the real one from Microsoft, I apologize, but this is very similar to what we have internally. Except in this case, you'll see we only have 500 people in this community. And the one that we have for our CEO internally, it's over 190,000 people are in there, because we allow vendors as well as our full-time employees. So 190,000 people all communicating in one community. Yay! As part of that. But of course, we only have one CEO. So we have a team of folks that help him to at least parse some of the posts that he's going into and responding to. And so you can see as part of this community, we've got good discussions that are going on here. People are posting pictures. They can actually post in the languages that they're most easy to talk to as well. So in this case, you've got a thread that was started off in English here, and then people can actually communicate back in the language that's most useful, and they can translate that original text in there too. You'll see also, if you haven't looked at Yammer for a while, you might notice something a little bit different here. We actually show a number of events here on the side. And this is actually a new functionality that's gone live. We've had it inside of Microsoft for quite a while. But the idea of actually doing group events is an important one for us. And that's that idea of being able to communicate more broadly across the organization. It's important in this Yammer community here that we actually set up how you ask questions. So an important part of setting up that community is to put those guardrails around what it is that you want people to communicate about. So we give them very precise instructions, right? Look at the group first, please read first, right? And then actually say, some of these questions are things that you want to like inside of your organization, and then have it post in there, and then our CEO will actually respond based on that. And there's two ways for him to respond, right? He can actually respond directly in the group if it's a question that we want right now, but we can also respond directly through the Q&A session that's live. And so I have these events stacked up here. You can actually schedule a new event as part of this. And so I can look through all the different events here, for example. So I'm going to pick this September Leadership Q&A here. I'm going to shrink this page down. So you can see this is actually an event page that's stored as part of this community, which means that I can set up an event. I can say it's going to happen, a month from now, and people can ask questions as part of it. And so when we ask those questions here, you can actually see those comments going on as part of this. People can reply, etc. They can add all of that content as part of it too. It'll actually load up here a stream video, and so that video can be stored directly inside of Stream and published straight through Yammer as well. And I think it's just the Wi-Fi is a little slow, I apologize, but we'll look at that in just a second. Now, the other piece that I mentioned is that right inside of SharePoint, we actually have also a executive site. And so we call it internally, we have one that's called Executive Corner, and it looks very much like this. Hopefully for those who use SharePoint Online right now, hopefully you recognize this as being a SharePoint communication site. And you can see we have a bunch of information at the top here. These are usually the stories that are most valuable for us, things like leadership principles and the latest news. So we have those here too. And this is the way that our executive team actually blogs. So they use news articles right inside of SharePoint, which you can publish directly through your mobile phone. We encourage our executives when they're out visiting customers, maybe there are different conferences, different events. It's always amazing when Satya is at Davos or something like that, right? And he's seeing all these incredible leaders from around the world, and he just takes selfies with them, right? And posts them so we can actually see them internally as well. And it's a great way of kind of humanizing your leader and thinking about how you're having that authentic conversation. Oftentimes inside of those communities, people don't realize what others are working on, so it's a great way to be able to share that out. So we have in here also those Yammer Conversations. So this is actually a new web part that's come out in SharePoint for Yammer communities. And so you can see all of those community conversations that we were looking at earlier. Here's the same Giphy, just to prove that it's exactly the same. And you see that translation here as well. And so those Yammer communities are integrated in here. And then here's that video that's also the same video that we would have on this live events page. It's just taking a while to load over here. So I wanted to show you a couple of capabilities that we have inside of that live video. So whether this is live or the recording in this case, when I stream this video, you'll see that, I've got the video itself in here. I can also turn on things like closed captions. And these closed captions are being transcribed automatically as part of that Microsoft Stream service. So it's part of Office 365. So we can check out all of those transcription there. So that makes it really easy for people to be able to find the content that they need later on, as well as use it for accessibility right now. So if I search for, in this case, the word people, you'll see that I get all of the results that mention people as part of that transcription. And so this is really helpful when you've had these monthly meetings or these big meetings across the company and you're trying to find the information that you used earlier, right? And so people have asked a question earlier, you just want to go back in time and actually find that information. That's automatically part of this particular service. So there's this, and then we also have in here a channel of all of those videos as well. And so what I'm showing you, this is out of the box basically, or out of the cloud, Office 365. There's nothing special in here that we've done to customize it, but we've actually have a channel here to be able to show all of those different videos. So I hope you sort of see the different ways you can put all these capabilities together. So in this case, we've got that Yammer community, we've got the discussions. We can also include those as part of our SharePoint communication site, and you can create news very easily as part of that site as well. And then, it can edit this site and update it to have a bunch of content there too. I mentioned that news is one of the ways that we actually work a lot in terms of Microsoft and the way we communicate out. And this is one of those great things from an open learning and discussion perspective. So let me just show you one quick slide on that. When we think about open learning and sharing, this is kind of the ways that we actually use the communities ourselves, again, inside of Microsoft. So we create things like a hub for employee onboarding is an easy one. It could be a community of practice, could be something like, all of the project managers in the company. And then we actually look at how we're connecting groups inside of Yammer as well to gather a lot of feedback and crowdsourcing ideas. So this is actually one of the ways we get feedback ourselves in terms of the products that we're working on. So we put all these communities together. We actually have, everybody in the organization can actually correspond and write back in terms of ideas and innovations and what they're hearing from customers. Just like when I've had great conversations with you all this week, I've actually gone ahead and posted all of that inside of Yammer. So, so you're all famous on Yammer inside of Microsoft right now in terms of what we're sharing back in terms of when you've given me product ideas or things that you want fixing, all of that stuff has been posted out there so we can access it. When we think about open sharing and learning in those communities, it's really about how we're doing connection to expertise, how we're doing learning, and then again, crowdsourcing and innovation. We have some great customers in the room here as well. Ted, I'll point you out because you have a red coat on, you're easy to point out. So Ted is from Nationwide. Feel free to ask him about amazing case studies they have in terms of first-line workers using it nationwide broadly as well, and many of you in the room as well. So it's kind of a great way to be able to think about how we use that crowdsourcing, using the employee voice that we have, and then putting those together in those different areas. So I'm going to stop there because I know I just have a few minutes. So I'm looking at Jane. She's probably giving me the hook already here. But I wanted to show you some resources as well. If you want to adopt these kinds of approaches inside of your organizations, if you have Office 365, these are some of the great ways to get started. And these are basically all the usage ways to get started. So leadership engagement, we have some deep dives on how to make those leadership engagement communities inside of your organization. And then how to more generally look at Yammer adoption. So both for communities of practice as well as other use cases. And then we have also an Office 365 Champions program. So if that's something that you're new and looking at in terms of how you're updating it, Productivity Library covers a lot of different business scenarios. So if that's something you're interested as well. And then I got some other ideas in terms of Teams and Stream and things that might be useful to you there. So hopefully that gave you a little flavor about what we do and how we organize communities at Microsoft and what we're doing there. And just wanted to say thank you. It's been an amazing event, so it's always a privilege to be here with you all, and love talking with you all. Thank you so much.